Meet our woo-woo SCOBY, kombucha. Kombucha, tea kvass, or fermented tea. And this is very similar to vinegar making in the sense that it needs oxygen. So the more air that you can get it, the better the brew you will get. Now there's many ways that you can make your kombucha, but today we're making it the quick way. So you don't need to boil your sugar and boil your tea, because you're going to take away a lot of the oxygen that it needs. So it's oxygen loving. So there you go. We're just going to do 3 litres of water is for our continuous brew container. So we'll just take off about 500 mils of that water, boil it into the saucepan, and the idea of that is just to dissolve the sugar and just to draw the tea from the tea bags. I've used 6 tea bags. The choice of tea bags is totally up to you. We're living in the tropics. We only have 2 seasons. We have like summer and hot summer. At the moment it is very onto our hot summer, so I'm using white tea because that's a nice light one. So there's 6 tea bags, or you can use equivalent in loose tea. A lot of people like to use 3 green tea bags and 3 black tea bags. It's best to choose an organic source of your sugar and of your tea bags. Now, talking of sugar, we're putting the cup of sugar, and very important is your old brew. So if you're getting one of those SCOBYs from someone, you need to get at least 2 cups of very old brew from them as well, because that's your starter. So when that's cool, we'll then put that into there. 6 tea bags there, and the cup of sugar. So that's all dissolved now. So that's the purpose of that hot water, was to dissolve that. So we need 3 litres in total of water. So we'll put in 2.5 litres of cool water. We already had a ½ litre that we had boiled to dissolve the sugar and to draw the tea from the bags. Now we'll add the starter tea. This is 2 cups of starter tea from the previous kombucha tea brew, or if it's gifted to you, as I said. So that makes up to 10 to 25% of your total brew. So that was all nice and cool, so we don't kill any of the good bacteria and yeast. And in our container we have our little SCOBY. So that SCOBY is an acronym for symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. So what does that mean? Well, it's a colony, it's a community. It's a community of bacteria and yeast. So, okay, Linny, so it's a community. What does that mean? So we all live within a community, which means there's more than one person in our community. So this is exactly the same. This is a culture of many different strains of good bacteria and yeast. Gut loving, immune boosting. So now we're going to pour that into there, and then we will cover it with a breathable cloth, because remember this requires oxygen. So that will be covered, and we'll band it so that no little bugs get in, because it's got sugar in it at this stage, so it will attract like little flies and vinegar flies, so we don't need them flying into there. So we'll keep that well and truly sealed, and that's the first stage of your kombucha. Cover with your clean cloth, cotton cloth, something that breathes. A muslin baby cloth is excellent. Cheesecloth holes can be too big, and you may attract bugs that'll get through the big holes. You can use a paper towel or an unbleached coffee filter, just as long as it fits over your fermenting container, and a large rubber band or a string to secure. The idea is to prevent any pathogens from contaminating the brew. Make a home in a quite warm spot, away from other cultures. And don't forget to name your mother and thank her daily for all the babies she will produce that you can play with to make skincare. Pig dog ears. Pig dog ears. fruit leathers, salads, jerky, material dye, moccasins, sandals, art canvas, and I've got a drummer in the room. You can actually make drum skins and you can share them with others. Now, so you say, well, how would I make a drum skin? Well, that would depend on your container size. So you would do a big brew in a big container because you want it the size of a drum. So you could use like a barrel. Now, to make these in oak barrels, that is just superb. And you would use something like a barrel and you'd make it. And so the size that you make is the size what you will get your size of your SCOBY. So these will become quite thick and they will just keep multiplying. So this is continuous brew where you can just keep topping it up, or you can just do a single brew. Now remember your container, make sure that this size here will allow a lot of air. A lot of the bottles that they actually sell as kombucha brewing are way too small. If you want to get a really, really good brew, just use a bowl, like a big glass or what we call a Pyrex bowl, a good quality bowl, and put some tape on the top before you put your fabric over the top to seal it off, and you'll get a beautiful brew, well balanced brew, because it requires oxygen loving. Have fun with your boochies. Recap. Your initial fermentation you can draw off from your continuous brew container or your glass jar and refill with more sugar tea and start again with your glass container method. The advantage of this continuous brewing method is you avoid all the bottling and filtering and simply draw off a glass of fine kombucha and drink, and the result, in my opinion, tastes better. Or when you want to save some for later, you can do so at any time. So your continuous brewing kombucha, the benefits of that are both practical and nutritional. A large container used to ferment kombucha. Your fermented kombucha is drawn off in small amounts through a spigot at the bottom, your little tap, and your fresh sweet tea is then added to the top. Then we talk in fermentation for beverages, we call it a second ferment. The industry standard for glass bottles and ferments are ones with a long, narrow neck to limit any control over fermentation, and for brown or coloured glass to prevent harmful sunlight spoiling the ferment. Glass bottles and cappers are available from like beer and home brewing supply shops. So what flavours do you put in? Now if you check your ebook on kombucha, I've got many there. This one here is blue spirulina and it has a little bit of ginger. Ginger will give it fizz. You don't need to add a lot of sweetness to your second fermentation. You can use a juice, you can use greens, you can use practically anything, whatever that you'd like to flavour it with. You can get some beautiful colours. This one here has activated charcoal, so it's black, but it has prickly pear in there for sweetness, which is done into a juice. Then you can strain it off and enjoy your kombucha. Water kefir, kefir, depending on where you come from, your dictionary, how you pronounce it. TIBICOS is its real name, Tibi. It comes under ginger beer, many names, but it makes a beautiful beverage. And it has lots of other uses too. Do read the Water Kefir book. You'll see how, and in module 7, you'll see how we mix it into lots of our food. So it's a little, what we call like a grain. So there they are there. They're like a little gelatinous, and it's got bacteria and yeast. This is very healthy. You can actually use this to make like coconut milk, yogurt and things like that if you want to be completely dairy free. Water kefir is loaded with valuable enzymes, easily digestible sugars, beneficial acids, vitamins and minerals. It's also generally suitable for some diabetics although personal discretion is advised. It'll supply your body with billions of healthy bacteria and yeast strains. Some store-bought probiotic foods or supplements help, but they are not as potent and do not contain the beneficial yeast, usually just bacteria. So what we have to do here is it feeds on sugar. Now, you can leave it out for anything up to 24 to 48 hours. 48 hours is good, so what we've got to do is we've got to feed it. These are live. All these foods are live foods, so it does need to be constantly fed. So you just get into a routine. So every second day is a good time to strain it off. Then that liquid down there, that's the liquid that you drink, or you can use that to make a starter, like with flour. You can use it to soak your dried fruits. It'll actually draw out the sugars in dried fruit. It has so many uses. So at the moment we're going to do the first stage. So what it needs is, it needs sugar. So normally you use about the same quantity of sugar as what you've got grains, and these multiply very quickly. You can buy these online. Anybody in your local community that makes them will love to share communities of bacteria and yeast. It's lovely that a community can share within the community, but you can get them online, like eBay even sells them. So I've got like in your water kefir book, it'll tell you exactly the quantities that you can use and what sugars that you can use. It loves minerals, so you can add like a pinch of bicarb soda, which helps with the acidity. Eggshell, it'll draw out the calcium from the eggshell, and a clean eggshell in there is very good for people who are under a bit of stress. It certainly helps with that. Coral, you can add coral to it. There's so many things that you can add. A little dash of molasses is very good, because once again it loves the minerals that are in molasses. You can change your sugars. You don't have to use the same sugar all the time. That little bit of ginger has just come in there. So the idea is that you must dissolve the sugar. You can't have the sugar granules touching there. So rather than boil up like the sugar, just add a little bit of heat and dissolve your sugar, so that you've got no sugar grains touching the actual water kefir grain. This here is my perpetual tea, which you've seen earlier on, and that's like your ginger and your lemongrass. It loves ginger. Ginger is, well, you can actually make like a beautiful ginger drink with it. So that's what I use, because I have that continually going, and it's great just to dissolve the sugar. So that's all dissolved. So you would just make sure that there's actually no sugar granules in there. You can add your little pinch of bicarb and your little dash of molasses, and then you just top it up with water, because that's what basically it feeds on. It's just sugar water. It's just like Grandpa. If you had Grandpa and you had him sitting in the corner and you didn't feed him, well, Grandpa wouldn't last for too long. These are exactly the same. They're live foods and they need to be fed. So what you're feeding this is sugar water. If you're going off on holidays, you can just pop him into the fridge and cover him with a little bit of sugar water like that, and he will stay there for you. So they're very forgiving. So that's it. In there you can put a couple of slices of ginger. You can even put a little quarter of lemon, because that drink there is what you can strain off, like what we have there, and you can just use that straight away. So the ginger and lemon gives it a really nice flavour, and also it's nice little food. But being live food, do change your food. Don't have it the same recipe that you use over and over again. These will last you for your life. That's how long you'll have them. You can pass them on to your grandchildren, and they can pass them on to their grandchildren. They grow very fast. They'll multiply. Sometimes you'll get about another half that same quantity again the next 48 hours when you go to strain them off. People hate to discard, but you must take them out. Now there's lots of things that you can do with those. My son, when he was little, he used to chew on them and call them gummies, and he still grabs them when I'm got them in the strainer. So they are very tasty. You can actually dehydrate them and put some beetroot juice or something, and they do look like a little gummy. So they're really, really lovely. So now that requires air. So what we do with that is we cover it with something that breathes, like that's a muslin cloth. Much the same as what we did with the kombucha. Make sure it's sealed, and put that into, I pop it into a cupboard, so it's a nice little dark spot, and that's where it likes to be pretty cool. But just as you get it down to a pat, the temperature can change. It doesn't like to get too hot. So in the really, really hot summer, I put it into a little foam box and put a little cold brick in there, so it keeps it nice and cool for a short period. But that's not totally necessary, and you will see lots of tips in the Water Kefir book. Oh, and enjoy. Then we can second ferment it. A secondary fermentation in a good quality pressure bottle with a swing top will give a carbonated drink with whatever taste added during the intermediary fermentation. There I've got some foraged greens and prickly pear and a little bit of ginger. And here we have ginger beer like no other. There's no, I do make my own ginger beer, but this one, if you add that ginger in your second fermentation, you can add ginger juice, or just if you're using ginger pieces, you will need to strain. But that is beautiful. Ching ching. So there we have Kombucha Water Kefir. That's just the start of your fermented beverages. Do check the fermented beverages books. There's 2 ebooks there that covers the history of beverages and lots of recipes which you can really get your juices going. Thank you, and we'll see you in our next module in Bubbling Brew Crew.